Welcome, brave souls, to Dreadful Diaries, where the shadows whisper secrets and the night holds untold horrors. If you crave the thrill of the unknown, make sure to subscribe and join our community of fellow horror enthusiasts. Now, dim the lights, grab a blanket, and let's dive into our first tale of terror. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the dense forest, 5 friends, Jake, Sarah, Mark, Emily, and Tom, set up camp for what they had dubbed their final campout. After years of friendship, college was coming to an end, and each of them was heading in different directions. They wanted to create one last memory together, a fitting farewell to their carefree days. The campsite was nestled deep in the woods, far from the noise of civilization. They chose a spot by a serene lake, its surface reflecting the vibrant colors of the sunset. Laughter filled the air as they pitched tents, gathered firewood, and prepared for a night of storytelling and reminiscing. As darkness enveloped the forest, they gathered around the crackling campfire. The flames danced, casting flickering shadows on their faces. They shared stories of their favorite memories, from late-night study sessions to spontaneous road trips. But as the night wore on, the mood shifted. Mark, usually the life of the party, grew quiet and distant. "Hey, Mark, you okay?" Sarah asked, noticing his unusual silence. "Yeah, just thinking," he replied, his gaze fixed on the fire. "About what?" Tom prodded, a teasing smile on his face. "Your future. Or maybe how you're going to miss us." Mark hesitated, then said, "Actually, I've been thinking about something that happened a long time ago. Something I've never told you guys." The group fell silent, intrigued. Mark had always been the one with the wild stories, but this was different. "It was during our first camping trip together," he began, his voice low. "We were at that old site by the river. Remember? The one with the creepy stories about the missing campers?" They nodded, recalling the tales of campers who had vanished without a trace. "Well, I didn't tell you everything that happened that night," Mark continued, his eyes darkening. "I went off to explore the woods alone. I thought I heard something, someone calling my name. I followed the sound, and I found a girl. She was lost, scared. I tried to help her, but she just kept saying, 'They're coming for me.'" "What happened?" Emily asked, leaning in closer. "I don't know," Mark said, his voice trembling. "I turned to get help, but when I looked back, she was gone. I searched for hours, but I never found her. I thought I was just imagining things, but I still hear her voice sometimes." A chill ran through the group. They exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of Mark's confession hanging in the air. "Maybe it's just your mind playing tricks on you," Jake suggested, trying to lighten the mood. "You know how it is when you're out in the woods at night." "Yeah, but what if it's not?" Mark shot back, his eyes wide with fear. "What if she's still out there? What if she's not alone?" The fire crackled ominously, and the group fell silent again, the shadows around them seeming to grow darker. As the night wore on, they decided to turn in, each retreating to their tents. But sleep eluded them. Mark's story lingered in their minds, and the forest outside felt alive with unseen eyes watching them. In the early hours of the morning, a blood-curdling scream shattered the stillness. The friends bolted upright, hearts racing. They scrambled out of their tents, fear gripping them as they searched for the source of the sound. "Tom!" Sarah shouted, panic rising in her voice. "Where's Tom?" They called his name, but there was no response. The forest was eerily quiet, the only sound the rustling of leaves in the wind. Maybe he went to the bathroom, Emily suggested, though her voice trembled with uncertainty. Or maybe he's gone, Mark whispered, his face pale. They decided to split up and search for him, but as they ventured deeper into the woods, they felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The trees loomed like sentinels, and the darkness seemed to close in around them. After what felt like hours, they regrouped at the campsite, breathless and terrified. "Did anyone find him?" Jake asked, his voice shaking. "No," Sarah replied, her eyes wide with fear. "But I found something." She held up a torn piece of fabric, the same color as Tom's jacket. "Where did you find that?" Mark asked, his heart racing. "Near the old trail," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The one we were warned about." Suddenly, they heard a rustling in the bushes nearby. They turned, hearts pounding, as a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Tom. The story begins in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, where the dense woods are alive with the sounds of nature. A group of campers, Alex, Mia, Jake, and Lily, decides to spend a weekend in a remote area known for its breathtaking views and serene atmosphere. They set up camp near a tranquil lake, surrounded by towering trees and the distant sound of a flowing stream. The first night is filled with laughter, stories, and the warmth of a crackling campfire. As darkness falls, the group gathers around the fire, sharing ghost stories and enjoying the crackling warmth. Mia, the most adventurous of the group, suggests they explore the woods a bit before heading to bed. Armed with flashlights, they venture into the trees, their laughter echoing through the night. But as they wander deeper, they begin to feel an unsettling presence, as if they are being watched. Returning to camp, they brush off the feeling, attributing it to the eerie atmosphere of the woods. They settle into their tents, but sleep eludes them. The sounds of the forest, crickets chirping, leaves rustling, seem amplified in the stillness of the night. Around midnight, Alex wakes to a strange noise outside his tent. It sounds like footsteps, but they are slow and deliberate. Heart racing, he peeks out, but sees nothing. He dismisses it as his imagination and tries to go back to sleep. However, the feeling of being watched lingers. The next morning, the group discusses the strange noises. Jake jokes about it being a bear, but Mia insists they should be cautious. They decide to hike during the day to explore the area, but the unease from the previous night hangs over them. As night falls again, the group gathers around the fire, but the atmosphere is tense. They share stories, but the laughter is forced. When they retire to their tents, Alex can't shake the feeling that something is out there. He lies awake, listening intently. Around 2 a.m., he hears the footsteps again, this time closer. He peeks out of his tent and sees a shadowy figure standing at the edge of the campsite, partially obscured by the trees. The figure is tall and unnaturally still, its features hidden in darkness. Alex's heart races as he watches, frozen in fear. Suddenly, the figure turns and disappears into the woods. The next morning, Alex shares what he saw with the group. They are skeptical but agree to stay alert. That night, they decide to set up a watch, taking turns keeping an eye on the campsite. As the hours pass, the tension builds. Mia is on watch when she hears the footsteps again. This time, she sees the figure, a tall, gaunt silhouette with an unsettling presence. It seems to be watching them, waiting. Panicking, she wakes the others, but when they emerge, the figure is gone. They decide to pack up and leave the next morning, but as they prepare, they realize their gear has been tampered with, food is missing, and some of their supplies are scattered. That night, they decide to confront whatever is stalking them. Armed with flashlights and a sense of dread, they venture into the woods, determined to find the figure. As they walk deeper into the forest, the atmosphere grows heavier, and the sounds of the night seem to fade away. Suddenly, they hear a rustling behind them. They turn, but it's just the wind. Then, they hear a low growl, sending chills down their spines. The figure appears again, closer this time, its eyes glinting in the darkness. It seems to be toying with them, leading them deeper into the woods. In a frantic chase, they run, but the figure is always just out of reach. They split up, hoping to confuse it, but the woods are disorienting. Alex finds himself alone, heart pounding, as he hears the figure's footsteps closing in. He hides behind a tree, holding his breath, praying it won't find him. As the figure approaches, Alex catches a glimpse of its face, pale and gaunt, with hollow eyes that seem to pierce through the darkness. It stops, tilting its head as if sensing his presence. In a moment of desperation, Alex makes a break for it, sprinting through the underbrush, branches scratching at his skin. He reunites with Mia, Jake, and Lily, who are equally terrified. They decide to make a stand, using their flashlights to illuminate the area. The figure appears again, circling them, its movements unnaturally fluid. They realize it's not just stalking them, it's playing a game, and they are the prey. In a final act of desperation, the group huddles together, their flashlights flickering as they shine them in the direction of the figure. It pauses, momentarily blinded by the light, and they seize the opportunity to make a run for it. They sprint through the trees, adrenaline pumping, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the stillness of the night. Emily and Ryan, a young couple eager for adventure, decide to spend a weekend camping in a remote area of the Cascade Mountains. They pack their gear, excited to escape the hustle and bustle of city life and reconnect with nature. After a long drive, they arrive at a secluded campsite surrounded by towering pines and the distant sound of a rushing river. The air is crisp, and the scent of pine fills their lungs as they set up their tent. As the sun begins to set, they gather firewood and prepare for their first campfire of the trip. The sky transforms into a canvas of oranges and purples, and they sit together, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. The peacefulness of the woods envelopes them, and they feel a sense of tranquility. The next day, while exploring the area, they stumble upon an old campfire site hidden among the trees. The fire pit is surrounded by large stones, and the ground is littered with remnants of charred wood. But what catches their attention are the strange symbols etched into the stones. They are intricate and unfamiliar, resembling a mix of ancient runes and tribal markings. "Look at these," Emily says, tracing her fingers over the symbols. "They're really old. I wonder who camped here before us." Ryan shrugs, intrigued but dismissive. "Probably just some hikers. Let's not get too caught up in it. We're here to relax, remember?" Despite Ryan's nonchalance, Emily feels a strange energy emanating from the site. She takes a few pictures with her phone, wanting to research the symbols later. As they continue their hike, she can't shake the feeling that they are being watched. That evening, they return to the campsite, and as darkness falls, they light a fire. The flames crackle and dance, casting flickering shadows around them. They share stories and laughter, but as the night deepens, Emily's earlier unease returns. The woods seem to come alive with sounds, the rustling of leaves, distant animal calls, and an unsettling silence that occasionally blankets the area. "Do you hear that?" Emily asks, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hear what?" Ryan replies, looking around. "It's just the forest. You're being paranoid." But Emily can't shake the feeling that something is off. As they sit by the fire, she notices movement in the trees just beyond the light's reach. She squints, trying to make out what it is, but the shadows play tricks on her eyes. The next day, they decide to hike further into the woods, hoping to shake off the strange feeling. They explore beautiful trails, but as night approaches, Emily suggests they return to their campsite. Ryan agrees, but he seems distracted, his mind elsewhere. That evening, they sit by the fire again, but the atmosphere is different. The woods feel oppressive, and the shadows seem to stretch longer than before. As they roast marshmallows, Emily notices the symbols from the old campfire site in her mind, and she can't help but feel a connection to them. "Ryan, do you think those symbols mean something?" she asks, her curiosity piqued. "Probably just some doodles from bored campers," he replies, but his tone is less dismissive than before. "Let's just enjoy the night." As they talk, the sounds of the forest grow quieter, and an eerie stillness settles around them. Suddenly, they hear a low, guttural growl coming from the darkness beyond the firelight. Both of them freeze, eyes wide with fear. "What was that?" Emily whispers, her heart racing. "I don't know," Ryan replies, his voice tense. "Stay close." The growling continues, echoing through the trees, and they can feel a presence lurking just beyond the firelight. Ryan grabs a flashlight and shines it into the darkness, but the beam reveals nothing. The growling stops, replaced by an unsettling silence. "Maybe it's just a bear," Ryan suggests, trying to sound brave. "We should make some noise to scare it off." Emily nods, but she can't shake the feeling that whatever is out there is not just a wild animal. They begin to clap and shout, but the sounds only seem to draw the presence closer. The air grows colder, and a sense of dread washes over them. Suddenly, the fire flickers violently, and the flames seem to dance in a way that feels almost alive. The symbols etched into the stones flash in Emily's mind, and she realizes they might be more than just markings, they could be a warning. As the night deepens, they hear whispers carried by the wind, unintelligible but filled with urgency. Emily feels compelled to return to the old campfire site, convinced that the answers lie there. Ryan. A group of 5 friends, Megan, Jake, Sarah, Tom, and Lisa, decide to spend a weekend camping in the serene wilderness of the Ozark National Forest. They are excited to escape their busy lives, reconnect with nature, and enjoy each other's company. After a long drive, they arrive at a picturesque campsite surrounded by towering trees and a gentle stream. They set up their tents, gather firewood, and prepare for a night of laughter and storytelling around the campfire. As the sun sets, they roast marshmallows and share ghost stories, the flickering flames casting shadows on their faces. The atmosphere is light and carefree, filled with the sounds of nature and their laughter. As the night deepens, they eventually retire to their tents, exhausted but happy. In the early hours of the morning, Megan wakes up to a rustling sound outside her tent. She glances at her watch, 3 a.m. The forest is eerily quiet, and she feels a chill run down her spine. She brushes it off as the wind and tries to go back to sleep. A few hours later, the sun rises, and the group begins to stir. As they gather for breakfast, Megan notices something strange. There's an unfamiliar figure sitting by the campfire, sipping coffee from a mug. The figure is a man in his late 20s, with tousled hair and a rugged appearance. He wears a worn flannel shirt and jeans, and he seems completely at ease, as if he belongs there. "Who are you?" Megan asks, her voice laced with confusion. The man looks up, a friendly smile on his face. "Hey there. I'm Ben. I hope you don't mind me joining you." I saw your campfire last night and thought I'd stop by." The friends exchange bewildered glances. They had all gone to bed early, and none of them had seen or heard anyone else arrive. We didn't see you last night," Jake says, trying to mask his unease. "How did you find us?" Ben shrugs, taking another sip of his coffee. "I was hiking nearby and saw your fire. I figured I'd come over and say hi. It's not often you find a group camping out here." The friends are hesitant but decide to invite Ben to join them for breakfast. As they eat, he engages them in conversation, asking questions about their lives, their jobs, and their relationships. At first, it seems innocent enough, but as he speaks, they begin to notice something unsettling. Ben knows too much about them. "Sarah, I heard you're a graphic designer. How's that project for the new client going?" he asks, his eyes glinting with curiosity. How do you know that?" Sarah replies, her brow furrowing. Ben chuckles lightly. "I overheard you talking about it last night. You have a great passion for your work." The group exchanges nervous glances, feeling increasingly uncomfortable. They hadn't shared any personal details with a stranger, and the way Ben speaks makes it seem as if he's been watching them. As the day progresses, Ben continues to linger around the campsite, offering to help with chores and suggesting hikes. The friends try to enjoy their day, but the unease grows. They can't shake the feeling that Ben is not who he claims to be. That evening, as they sit around the campfire, the atmosphere becomes tense. Ben shares stories about his own life, but they feel rehearsed, as if he's trying to fit in. He talks about his love for the outdoors and how he often camps alone, but there's an edge to his words that makes the group uneasy. "Sometimes, it's nice to be alone in the woods," Ben says, his gaze drifting into the darkness. "You can really get to know yourself out here." Megan feels a shiver run down her spine. "Yeah, but it's also nice to be with friends," she replies, trying to steer the conversation back to safer ground. That night, as they prepare for bed, the friends decide to keep their distance from Ben. They retreat to their tents, whispering about their discomfort. "Something's off about him," Lisa says. "I don't like it." As they lie in their tents, the sounds of the forest surround them. But as the night deepens, they hear strange noises, rustling in the bushes, whispers carried by the wind. Megan can't shake the feeling that they are being watched. Suddenly, a loud crash echoes through the campsite, followed by a low growl. The friends bolt upright, fear coursing through them. They scramble out of their tents, flashlights in hand, and find Ben standing at the edge of the clearing, staring. In the small town of Eldridge, a local legend spoke of a haunted forest known as Blackwood Hollow. It was said that every year, a group of high school seniors would venture into the woods for a rite of passage, a tradition that had been passed down for generations. The challenge was simple: spend one night camping in the heart of the forest, facing the spirits that were rumored to haunt the area. Those who completed the challenge would earn the respect of their peers and a place in the town's folklore. This year, a group of 5 friends, Emma, Jake, Mia, Ryan, and Tyler, decided to take on the challenge. They were excited, eager to prove their bravery and bond over the experience. Armed with camping gear, flashlights, and a cooler full of snacks, they set off into the woods, laughter echoing through the trees. As they hiked deeper into Blackwood Hollow, the atmosphere shifted. The trees grew denser, their branches intertwining like skeletal fingers. The sunlight struggled to penetrate the thick canopy, casting eerie shadows on the forest floor. Despite the growing unease, the friends pressed on, sharing stories and jokes to lighten the mood. After a few hours of hiking, they reached a clearing where they decided to set up camp. The area was surrounded by ancient trees, their gnarled roots twisting through the earth. As they pitched their tents, Mia pulled out a tattered old book she had found in the town library, filled with local legends and ghost stories. "Listen to this," she said, reading aloud. "The spirits of Blackwood Hollow are said to be the souls of those who perished in the woods, seeking revenge on those who disturbed their resting place. It's said that if you hear the whispers of the lost, you must not respond, or you'll be drawn into their world." The group laughed nervously, dismissing the story as just another urban legend. They gathered around a campfire that night, roasting marshmallows and sharing ghost stories, but the tales of the forest lingered in the back of their minds. As darkness fell, the forest transformed. The sounds of the night grew louder, the rustling of leaves, the hooting of owls, and the distant howls of wolves. The friends huddled closer to the fire, their laughter fading as the shadows deepened. Around midnight, as they sat in a circle sharing stories, they began to hear faint whispers drifting through the trees. At first, they thought it was just the wind, but the whispers grew clearer, almost calling to them. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. "Did you guys hear that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Probably just the wind," Jake replied, trying to sound brave. But even he couldn't shake the feeling of unease. As the night wore on, the whispers continued, growing louder and more insistent. The friends exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to do. Mia, feeling adventurous, suggested they investigate the source of the sounds. With flashlights in hand, the group ventured into the woods, following the whispers. The trees loomed overhead, their branches swaying ominously in the wind. The deeper they went, the more the whispers seemed to surround them, echoing through the darkness. "Maybe we should turn back," Ryan suggested, his voice shaky. "This doesn't feel right." But Mia, driven by curiosity, urged them on. "Come on. We can't back down now. This is part of the challenge." As they pressed forward, the whispers grew louder, almost forming words. "Help us, find us," they seemed to call. The friends felt a pull, an inexplicable urge to follow the voices deeper into the woods. Suddenly, they stumbled upon an old, decrepit cabin hidden among the trees. The structure was weathered and covered in vines, its windows shattered and door hanging off its hinges. The whispers seemed to emanate from within. "Should we go inside?" Tyler asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Absolutely not," Emma replied, fear creeping into her voice. "This is a bad idea." But Mia, emboldened by the thrill of the unknown, stepped forward. "We have to see what's inside. It's part of the rite." Reluctantly, the others followed Mia into the cabin. The air inside was stale, filled with the scent of decay. As they explored the darkened rooms, they found remnants of the past, old photographs, broken furniture, and strange symbols carved into the walls. Suddenly, the whispers intensified, echoing around them. "Help us, find us," the friends felt a cold breeze sweep through the cabin, extinguishing their flashlights. Panic set in as they fumbled in the darkness, trying to turn them back on. Nestled in the heart of the Pine Ridge National Forest, Maple Grove Campground was a popular destination for families and outdoor enthusiasts. With its picturesque views, serene lake, and well-maintained facilities, it seemed like the perfect spot for a weekend getaway. A group of friends, Laura, Mark, Jenna, and Tom, decided to spend a long weekend camping there, eager to escape the stresses of their daily lives. As they arrived, the sun was shining, and the air was filled with the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves. They set up their tents near the lake, excited to explore the area. The campground was bustling with other campers, and the atmosphere was lively and cheerful. That evening, the friends gathered around a campfire, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the sky transformed into a canvas of oranges and purples. Laughter filled the air, but as darkness enveloped the campground, an unsettling feeling began to creep in. "Have you guys heard the stories about this place?" Jenna asked, her voice low. "I read that Maple Grove has a dark history." "What do you mean?" Mark replied, intrigued. "Apparently, years ago, there were reports of strange occurrences, people disappearing, strange noises at night. Some say it's haunted," Jenna explained, her eyes wide with excitement. "Sounds like a bunch of campfire tales to me," Tom scoffed, but Laura felt a chill run down her spine. She had always been sensitive to the supernatural, and something about the campground felt off. As the night wore on, the friends settled into their tents, but sleep eluded them. Around midnight, Laura was jolted awake by a strange noise outside. It sounded like whispers, faint but insistent. She sat up, heart racing, and listened intently. The whispers seemed to be coming from the direction of the lake. "Guys, do you hear that?" she whispered, shaking Mark awake. "Hear what?" he mumbled, still half asleep. "The whispers, by the lake," she insisted, her voice trembling. Mark listened for a moment, then shrugged. "It's probably just the wind. Go back to sleep." But Laura couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The whispers continued, growing louder, and she felt an overwhelming urge to investigate. She quietly unzipped her tent and stepped outside, the cool night air sending shivers down her spine. As she approached the lake, the whispers became clearer, almost like a chant. She squinted into the darkness, trying to make out any shapes. Suddenly, she saw figures standing at the water's edge, their backs turned to her. Panic surged through her, and she quickly retreated to her tent, heart pounding. The next morning, Laura shared her experience with the group, but they dismissed it as a bad dream. However, as the day progressed, strange occurrences began to unfold. Tom's backpack went missing, only to be found later in a tree. Jenna discovered her flashlight was dead, despite having charged it before the trip. Mark felt a cold breeze pass through their campsite, even though the air was still. That evening, they decided to explore the campground, hoping to find answers. They spoke to other campers, but most brushed off their concerns, claiming it was just their imagination. However, one elderly woman, sitting alone by her fire, leaned in and whispered, "You shouldn't be here. This place has a dark past." "What do you mean?" Laura asked, intrigued. "Years ago, there were sacrifices made to appease the spirits of the forest. People went missing, and the campground was abandoned for years. They say the spirits still linger, seeking revenge," the woman warned, her eyes filled with fear. The friends exchanged nervous glances, the weight of the woman's words settling heavily on them. They decided to return to their campsite, but the atmosphere felt charged with tension. That night, as they sat around the campfire, the whispers returned, echoing through the trees. This time, they were louder, more insistent. The friends huddled together, fear gripping them. "Maybe we should leave," Jenna suggested, her voice shaking. "Just a little longer," Mark insisted, trying to sound brave. "We can't let some stories scare us away." But as the night deepened, the whispers grew more frantic, and the temperature dropped. Suddenly, the fire flickered violently, casting eerie shadows around them. The friends felt a presence closing in, and panic set in. "Did you see that?" Laura shouted, pointing into the darkness. A shadowy figure seemed to dart between the trees, just out of reach. "Let's get inside the tents," Tom yelled, and they scrambled to their tents, hearts. In the heart of the Cascade Mountains, the small town of Pine Hollow was known for its breathtaking trails and stunning vistas. Every year, hikers flocked to the area, eager to explore the rugged beauty of the wilderness. Among them was a seasoned solo hiker named Alex, who had spent years traversing the trails and had a deep appreciation for nature's solitude. One crisp autumn morning, Alex set out on a solo hike along the popular Silver Creek Trail, a route known for its vibrant fall foliage and panoramic views. With a backpack filled with essentials and a camera to capture the beauty, Alex felt invigorated by the fresh mountain air. The sun shone brightly, and the sounds of nature surrounded him as he ventured deeper into the woods. The first signs of trouble. As the day wore on, Alex found himself lost in the beauty of the forest, snapping photos and enjoying the tranquility. However, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, he realized he had strayed off the main path. The vibrant colors of the leaves now cast long shadows, and the once familiar trail had become a maze of trees and underbrush. Panic set in as he tried to retrace his steps, but the forest seemed to shift around him. The sounds of nature faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. He called out, hoping to hear a response, but only the rustling of leaves answered him. As darkness fell, Alex's heart raced. He knew he needed to find shelter for the night. As he searched for a place to camp, Alex felt an inexplicable sense of being watched. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end, and he quickened his pace, glancing over his shoulder. The shadows deepened, and the forest grew eerily quiet. Suddenly, he heard a low growl, echoing through the trees. It was a sound that sent chills down his spine. "Is someone there?" he called out, his voice trembling. But there was no response, only the sound of his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Desperate to escape whatever was lurking in the darkness, Alex stumbled upon a small clearing. He quickly set up his tent, hoping to find safety within its confines. As he sat inside, he could hear the growling getting closer, accompanied by the sound of heavy footsteps. Fear gripped him as he realized he was not alone. Suddenly, the tent shook violently, and Alex's heart raced. He grabbed his flashlight and unzipped the entrance, shining the beam into the darkness. What he saw made his blood run cold. A massive, shadowy figure stood at the edge of the clearing, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, part animal, part something else entirely. Without thinking, Alex bolted from the tent, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He ran through the trees, branches scratching at his skin as he navigated the underbrush. The growling followed him, echoing through the night, and he could feel the creature gaining on him. "Please, no," he shouted, pushing himself harder. He could hear the creature's heavy breathing behind him, a sound that filled him with terror. He stumbled over roots and rocks, desperately trying to escape. As he ran, Alex's mind raced. He thought of the stories he had heard about the forest, tales of a creature that hunted those who wandered too far from the trails. It was said to be a guardian of the woods, punishing those who disrespected nature. But he had never believed in such things. Now, faced with the reality of the creature, he felt a deep sense of dread. After what felt like hours of running, Alex finally found a narrow ravine and jumped in, hoping to hide from the creature. He pressed himself against the cold earth, trying to catch his breath. The growling faded, but he could still hear the creature moving above him, sniffing the air, searching for him. As dawn broke, the forest began to stir with life again. The sounds of birds chirping and the rustling of leaves filled the air. Alex cautiously emerged from the ravine, his body aching and his mind racing. He had to find a way out of the forest. After hours of wandering, he finally stumbled upon a group of hikers who were searching for him. They were part of a search and rescue team, alerted by his friends when he failed to return. Relief washed over him as they rushed to his side, but he could see the concern in their eyes. "Where have you been?" one of the rescuers asked, helping him to his feet. "We were worried sick." I was being chased," Alex stammered, his voice trembling. "There was something in the woods. A creature, it was hunting me." The rescuers exchanged. In the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, a group of 4 friends, Lily, Mark, Sarah, and Jake, decided to spend a weekend camping under the rare phenomenon of a blood moon. The sky was set to be painted in deep reds and oranges, a sight that promised to be both beautiful and eerie. They packed their gear, excited for a weekend of adventure, storytelling, and stargazing. As they arrived at their campsite, the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the forest floor. The air was crisp, and the scent of pine filled their lungs. They set up their tents near a small clearing, surrounded by towering trees. As night fell, they gathered around the campfire, sharing stories and laughter, but the excitement of the blood moon loomed over them like a dark cloud. While rummaging through an old box of camping supplies, Jake stumbled upon a dusty, leather-bound book. Its pages were yellowed with age, and the cover was adorned with strange symbols. Intrigued, he brought it over to the fire. "Guys, check this out," Jake exclaimed, flipping through the pages. "It looks like some kind of ritual book." "What kind of rituals?" Lily asked, leaning in closer. "Looks like some old folklore stuff." "There's a ritual for the blood moon," Jake said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "It says here that performing it can grant you a wish, but it warns that you must be careful what you wish for." "Sounds like a recipe for disaster," Mark said, chuckling. "But it could be fun. Let's do it." Despite Sarah's hesitations, the group decided to go ahead with the ritual. They gathered the necessary items listed in the book, a few candles, a small bowl of water, and a handful of herbs. As the blood moon began to rise, they set up the ritual in the clearing, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. With the moon hanging low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the forest, the friends formed a circle around the bowl of water. They lit the candles, their flames flickering in the cool night air. Jake read the incantation from the book, his voice steady but filled with excitement. "By the light of the blood moon, we call upon the spirits of the night. Grant us our wish, but heed our warning, do not awaken what should remain buried." As they finished the incantation, a gust of wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing the candles. The friends exchanged nervous glances, but Jake laughed it off. "It's just the wind. Let's make our wishes." One by one, they shared their wishes, each one more ambitious than the last. Lily wished for success in her career, Mark wished for adventure and excitement, Sarah wished for love, and Jake wished for fame and fortune. As they finished, the ground beneath them trembled slightly, but they dismissed it as their imaginations running wild. That night, as they settled into their tents, an unsettling feeling crept over the campsite. The air grew heavy, and the sounds of the forest seemed to fade away. Lily, unable to sleep, stepped outside to gaze at the blood moon. Its crimson glow illuminated the trees, casting long shadows that danced in the night. Suddenly, she heard a low growl emanating from the darkness. Heart racing, she turned to head back to the tent, but the growl grew louder, echoing through the trees. Panic surged through her as she realized she was not alone. "Guys," she shouted, rushing back to the tent. "Something's out there." The others quickly emerged, their faces pale with fear. The growling continued, now accompanied by the sound of heavy footsteps approaching. They huddled together, their hearts pounding in their chests. "What do we do?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "We shouldn't have performed that ritual." As the growling grew closer, the friends could see a dark figure emerging from the shadows. It was massive, with glowing red eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. The creature was unlike anything they had ever seen, part beast, part shadow, with an aura of malevolence that sent chills down their spines. "Run!" Mark shouted, and they bolted into the woods, the creature hot on their heels. The forest was a blur of trees and shadows as they stumbled through the underbrush, branches scratching at their skin. The growling echoed behind them, a constant reminder of the danger they faced. They ran blindly, adrenaline fueling their escape, but the creature was relentless. It seemed to know the forest better than they did, cutting them off at every turn. They could hear its heavy breathing, feel its presence closing in. "Split up!" Jake yelled, trying to create confusion. "We'll meet back at..." A group of 5 friends, Emily, Ryan, Sarah, Jake, and Mia, decided to spend a weekend camping in the remote Whispering Pines forest, known for its towering trees and serene beauty. They were excited to escape the chaos of their daily lives, eager to bond over campfires and starlit skies. After setting up their tents in a clearing, they gathered around a crackling fire, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. As night fell, the forest transformed. The sounds of nature faded, replaced by an eerie stillness. The friends exchanged ghost stories, laughing nervously as they recounted local legends about the forest. One tale spoke of laughter echoing through the trees, leading unsuspecting campers into the depths of the woods, never to return. "Sounds like a bunch of nonsense," Ryan scoffed, tossing another log onto the fire. "It's just a story to scare people." But as the night deepened, an unsettling feeling settled over the group. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, and the air grew colder. They decided to turn in for the night, but sleep eluded them. Around midnight, Emily was jolted awake by a sound that sent chills down her spine, laughter, echoing through the trees. It was high-pitched and childlike, yet it carried an unsettling quality that made her heart race. She sat up, glancing around the tent, but her friends were still asleep. "Guys, wake up," she whispered urgently, shaking Ryan. "Do you hear that?" Ryan groggily opened his eyes, listening intently. The laughter echoed again, clearer this time, and it seemed to be coming from deeper within the forest. "Maybe it's just some kids camping nearby," he suggested, but Emily could see the unease in his eyes. "Let's check it out," she urged, her curiosity piqued. "It could be fun." Reluctantly, Ryan agreed, and they quietly unzipped the tent, careful not to wake the others. The laughter continued, beckoning them into the darkness. They grabbed their flashlights and stepped into the cool night air, the forest alive with the sounds of rustling leaves. As they ventured deeper into the woods, the laughter grew louder, echoing around them. It was intoxicating, drawing them in like a siren's call. They followed the sound, weaving through the trees, their flashlights illuminating the path ahead. "Where are the others?" Ryan asked, glancing back at the campsite. They had left Jake, Mia, and Sarah behind, but the laughter was too enticing to turn back. "Just a little further," Emily urged, her heart racing with excitement. "We can't miss this." Suddenly, the laughter stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. The friends exchanged nervous glances, the thrill of the chase fading into uncertainty. Maybe we should go back, Ryan suggested, but before they could turn around, the laughter erupted again, this time closer and more sinister. "Run!" Emily shouted, and they took off, the sound of their footsteps echoing through the trees. The laughter followed them, taunting and mocking, as if it were playing a game. They ran blindly through the forest, the trees closing in around them. The laughter grew louder, more chaotic, and they could feel a presence lurking just out of sight. Panic surged through them as they stumbled into a clearing, their breath coming in ragged gasps. "Where are we?" Jake asked, emerging from the shadows, his face pale with fear. Mia and Sarah followed closely behind, their eyes wide with terror. "We heard the laughter too," Mia exclaimed, her voice trembling. "What's going on?" Before they could answer, the laughter erupted again, echoing from all directions. The friends huddled together, fear gripping them as they realized they were not alone. Shadows danced around them, and the laughter morphed into a cacophony of voices, each one distinct yet overlapping, creating a nightmarish symphony. "Get back!" Ryan shouted, raising his flashlight, but the beam flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. The game begins. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced into figures, ghostly apparitions of children, their faces twisted in glee. They circled the group, their laughter ringing in the air, a haunting melody that sent chills down their spines. "Welcome to our game," one of the apparitions called out, its voice echoing with a childlike innocence that belied the malice behind it. "You've come to play, haven't you? What do you want from us?" Sarah cried, her voice shaking. "Just a little fun," the apparition replied, grinning widely. "But first, you must find your way out of the woods. If you can escape." A group of 4 friends, Ben, Clara, Mike, and Jenna, decided to spend a weekend camping in the remote and picturesque Pine Hollow Forest. Known for its towering trees and serene beauty, the forest was a popular spot for hikers and campers alike. The friends were excited to escape the hustle and bustle of their daily lives, eager to bond over campfires and starlit skies. As they arrived at their campsite, the sun was shining, and the air was filled with the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves. They set up their tents in a small clearing surrounded by tall pines, the scent of pine needles filling their lungs. After a long day of hiking, they gathered around a campfire, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. As night fell, the atmosphere shifted. The forest grew quiet, and an unsettling feeling crept over the group. Clara, who had always been sensitive to her surroundings, felt a chill run down her spine. "Does anyone else feel like we're being watched?" she asked, glancing around nervously. "Come on, Clara, it's just the woods," Ben replied, trying to lighten the mood. "You're just imagining things." But as the night deepened, the friends began to notice something strange. Every time they looked into the darkness beyond the campfire's glow, they felt a pair of eyes watching them. It was an unsettling sensation, as if they were being scrutinized by unseen observers. "Did you see that?" Mike suddenly exclaimed, pointing into the trees. The others turned to look, but there was nothing there, just the shadows of the forest. "Maybe it's just an animal," Jenna suggested, though her voice trembled slightly. "We should be careful." As they settled into their tents for the night, Clara couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She lay awake, listening to the sounds of the forest, but the whispers of the wind and the rustling of leaves felt different, charged with an energy that made her heart race. Around midnight, Clara was jolted awake by a strange noise outside her tent. It sounded like soft footsteps, followed by a low growl. She held her breath, straining to listen. The sound of something moving through the underbrush sent chills down her spine. Ben, she whispered, shaking her boyfriend awake. I think something's out there. Ben groggily opened his eyes, but before he could respond, they both heard it, a soft, eerie whisper that seemed to echo through the trees. Help us, help us. Did you hear that? Clara asked, her voice trembling. Yeah, but it's probably just the wind, Ben replied, though he sounded less certain. Suddenly, a pair of glowing eyes appeared in the darkness, peering at them from the shadows. Clara's heart raced as she realized they were not alone. The eyes multiplied, appearing all around the campsite, watching them intently. Get everyone! Clara hissed, her voice urgent. Ben quickly unzipped the tent and called for Mike and Jenna, who emerged, bleary-eyed and confused. What's going on? Mike asked, looking around. There are eyes everywhere. Clara exclaimed, pointing into the darkness. We need to get out of here. As the friends gathered their belongings, the whispers grew louder, echoing through the trees. Help us, help us. The voices seemed to come from all directions, and the eyes drew closer, flickering like distant stars. Let's just get to the car, Jenna suggested, her voice shaking. We can figure this out once we're safe. They hurriedly packed their gear, but as they moved, the eyes seemed to close in around them, the whispers growing more frantic. Stay with us. Run! Ben shouted, and they bolted into the darkness, flashlights in hand. The forest was a maze of trees and shadows, and the friends stumbled through the underbrush, fear propelling them forward. The eyes followed them, darting between the trees, and the whispers turned into a cacophony of voices, pleading and desperate. Help us, don't leave us. As they ran, they found themselves in a small clearing, the moonlight illuminating the area. The eyes surrounded them, glowing with an otherworldly light. The friends huddled together, their hearts racing as they faced the unseen entities. What do you want? Clara shouted, her voice filled with fear and defiance. Suddenly, the whispers coalesced into a single voice, echoing through the clearing. We are the lost souls of the forest, trapped between worlds. We seek release, but you must confront your fears to help us. What do you mean? Mike asked, his voice trembling. To free. On a crisp autumn afternoon, a group of 5 friends, Emma, Jake, Sarah, Tom, and Lily, set out for a weekend camping trip in the dense woods of Pine Hollow. They had been planning this getaway for months, eager to escape the hustle and bustle of city life. As they hiked deeper into the forest, the vibrant colors of the leaves painted a picturesque scene, and laughter echoed through the trees. After several hours of trekking, they stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cabin nestled between towering pines. Its weathered wooden walls were covered in moss, and the windows were dark and dusty. Curiosity piqued, they approached the cabin, exchanging excited glances. Let's check it out. Jake suggested, his adventurous spirit shining through. Are you sure it's safe? Sarah hesitated, glancing at the creaking door. Come on, what's the worst that could happen? Tom chimed in, pushing the door open with a loud groan. The door swung inward, revealing a dimly lit interior filled with cobwebs and the scent of damp wood. Inside, the cabin was surprisingly spacious. A large stone fireplace dominated one wall, and a rickety table sat in the center, surrounded by mismatched chairs. Old photographs hung crookedly on the walls, their subjects long forgotten. The friends exchanged nervous laughter, the thrill of adventure overshadowing their unease. As night fell, they decided to make the cabin their base for the evening. They set up sleeping bags in the main room, lit a fire, and began to share ghost stories, the flickering flames casting eerie shadows on the walls. The atmosphere was electric with excitement, but as the stories grew darker, an unsettling feeling crept over them. "Did you hear that?" Lily whispered, her eyes wide as she glanced toward the darkened corners of the cabin. "Hear what?" Emma replied, trying to sound brave. "Like footsteps," Lily insisted, her voice trembling. "Probably just the wind," Jake said dismissively, though he couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. As the night wore on, the friends settled into a comfortable rhythm, roasting marshmallows and laughing. But the unease lingered. Every creak of the cabin seemed amplified, and the wind howled outside, making the old structure groan. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the back of the cabin, causing everyone to jump. "What was that?" Sarah gasped, her face pale. "Let's check it out," Tom said, trying to sound brave, though his voice wavered. With hesitant steps, they moved toward the source of the noise. As they approached a closed door at the back of the cabin, they could hear faint whispers, as if someone, or something, was inside. The air grew thick with tension. "Should we open it?" Emma asked, her heart racing. "On three," Jake said, trying to rally the group. 1, 2, 3. They flung the door open, revealing a small, dark room filled with old furniture and dusty boxes. In the corner, a figure stood shrouded in shadows, its back turned to them. The friends froze, fear gripping them. "Who's there?" Tom called out, his voice barely above a whisper. The figure turned slowly, revealing a gaunt face with hollow eyes. "You shouldn't be here," it rasped, its voice echoing with an otherworldly quality. Panic surged through the group, and they stumbled backward, colliding with one another. "Run!" Sarah screamed, and they bolted for the front door. As they raced outside, the wind howled louder, and the trees seemed to close in around them. They didn't stop running until they reached the safety of their car parked a short distance away. Breathless and terrified, they jumped inside, slamming the doors shut. "What was that?" Lily gasped, her eyes wide with fear. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here," Jake said, fumbling with the keys. As they sped away from the cabin, the friends glanced back, and to their horror, they saw the figure standing in the doorway, watching them with an unsettling stillness. The drive back to civilization was filled with silence, each of them lost in their thoughts. The thrill of adventure had turned into a nightmare, and the woods that had once felt inviting now seemed dark and foreboding. Once they reached the nearest town, they vowed never to speak of that night again. The abandoned cabin remained a haunting memory, a reminder that some places are best left undisturbed. As they returned to their everyday lives, the woods of Pine Hollow whispered secrets that only the brave, or the foolish, would dare to uncover.